G'day, amazing people. Been chatting with a number of communities at the moment about their meetings and also about us dealing with some spot fires. So I want to touch base on these two things. Firstly, meetings. Meetings can become really annoying for lots of people, depending on personalities, especially when they don't feel that they're getting traction or that they're a bit aimless. So one of the best things to do is actually set up an agenda. Now, call it what you want if you don't like the term agenda. Doesn't matter. It's got to still do the same thing, which is a framework for the meeting. Now, at times I must have put my hand up. If I don't do that for a meeting, I know that it will, in all probability, meander. Sometimes there is a place for a meandering meeting, though, I must admit, because quite regularly that will be about relationship development. And if you set too much of a structure for some particular types of meetings, depending on their intention, then what that can actually do is close down. So if the meeting has an intention of relationship or opening the mind, for instance, into the right brain, then it's best to really provide a bit of space in the meeting for them to be done. Don't put too much pressure, time pressure particularly. Time pressure is more left brain orientated. However, that said, many of you will be traveling a distance and only have a limited amount of time. So if you've got, say, an hour and a half that you've really got to pack it into, then the best thing to do is actually set an agenda. Then putting that out to everyone, letting them see what the agenda is, and also provide comment about things that they're meant to actually be involved in can be really, really beneficial, because then people are on the same page and they feel included. But another thing is, and I'll come back to this in a minute when I talk about spot fires, but the agenda should have like your top priorities on it. So for instance, if setting up trading posts is one of your top priorities in the community, or finding out some information about suppliers, farmers, etc., is one of the key things that you've been working on lately, then they should actually be within the agenda. So let's move on from that now to what I would call spot fires. Some people are ringing me saying, James, I'm dealing with this and dealing with that, etc. Now, most of the time, I'll say to them, listen, you guys are dealing with spot fires. And spot fires, if you try and deal with all these spot fires, you run around like a headless chook. So how do we deal with that? Well, spot fires occur when there's no direction. So one of the things with your meetings and your groups, what's your 3-month vision? So it's all well and good to say we're going to create heaven on earth, a new kingdom of heaven on earth for the betterment of humanity. It is so high level. How does that actually happen? So high level that it can lose people. So we've got to then chunk it down. How do we actually do that? By establishing a series of self-sustaining communities. Okay, that have to be interconnected. For someone to be interconnected, it means they have to have a philosophy of life, which is fairly similar, values, principles. So we help people through this. And then they have to have the architecture for those trading posts and for the ability for the community to come together, but then also to nest into a suite of other communities. So all of a sudden you're starting to see, right, we're breaking it down, and so that we're going to priorities. So for the Central Committee at the moment, one of the biggest priorities is helping getting the trading posts up and running, which then also requires us to source other suppliers outside the communities to bring them in, to a transportation network, all these different things, and to help people with the knowledge base to be able to run their own trading posts. So it's got longevity to it. It's got legs. So you can see there's an educative aspect to it. There's a practical aspect of sourcing raw materials, and also relationship building. So they are quite key for the Central Committee at the moment. So with the vision, break it down even further and say, okay, so we're working to this big vision. So let's chunk it down, and remember those 3 questions that we always ask. Where am I? Where do I want to be? And where's my next step? So where do we as a group want to be in 3 months' time? And so get really clear as a group where you want to be in 3 months' time. And then ask the question, for that to occur, what needs to happen? What needs to happen for us to be there in 3 months' time? That will give you priorities. That will then turn to you and say, which is the highest priority? Okay, there's my next step. Or which one can we get really secured quickly, which gives us that feeling of getting momentum, because momentum's a high priority for us right now, as opposed to intangible, which is actually really tangible when you feel it. So we'll do this one quickly. Now, that's our first step. And our second step will be in alignment with this priority as well. So then we go, right, our meeting has focus. So for the next 3 months, our meetings are focused on the goal of moving towards here. Each of the priorities must have a place within the agenda. They must be talked about. And it's really great to have someone in the community actually allocated to that specific agenda, that agenda point. For instance, trading posts. Trading posts in each community that's actually moving towards establishing a trading post should actually be in the agenda items, and there should be a person who's a lead for that to actually bring that information forward, discuss it, and then take away anything that needs to be taken away. Just that's how we make things work. So with spot fires, coming back to this point, getting a strategy will help put out the spot fires, because all of a sudden people go forward with this strategy, and then what happens is the spot fires naturally will dissolve. Trust that's been a benefit. You're doing an amazing job, and those that need it, make sure you do reach out, because there is a wealth of information. Don't just reach to the Central Committee, but also reach to all the people in the communities as well. Big love.